everyone, welcome to The Composer's Life. I'm Nadia, your host, and today we have a special guest, Odaline de la Martinez. Welcome on the podcast.
Thank you and well pronounced. You
Thank
pronounced my
you.
name very well, Nadia.
I do try with pronunciation, but it is hard sometimes. I guess I just want to start. I know that you compose and write music,
Yes.
and I also saw that you're a conductor. Is there anything else that you do?
Well, I also run a festival. Every 2 years in London, I run the London Festival of American Music, which features a lot of American composers that are pretty well known in the States but completely unknown in the UK and Europe. And it's
Okay.
about a week. Yeah?
I guess let's start with composition.
Yes.
What originally got you into composing?
I don't know. I just started writing. I was a little girl and I wanted to do a piece about baby going to sleep. I don't have a baby, but a little baby going to sleep, and I did. I did it in Spanish, and then I realized we'd moved to America. So I changed the words to English, and that was my first piece for voice and piano.
That's
No,
amazing.
guitar and piano.
Oh, very nice. So, did you play guitar and piano as a child?
I played the piano and I played the drums, but guitars I must have learned by then because it wasn't difficult. I think I just wrote the chords.
Mm, yeah, to go with it. And where did you move from to America?
Well, I was born in Cuba, and after the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961, my parents decided to send my sister Margarita and me to live with my aunt and uncle in Arizona, in Tucson, Arizona, until they could come. And eventually my mother came, and then my father. My mother came with my brother, PJ, and they settled in New Orleans. So I followed them, and I kind of grew up in New Orleans, and then went to university, my first university, Tulane, here in New Orleans.
Wow. And you're still there today in New Orleans.
No, no, I live in the UK. When I graduated from Tulane, I won several scholarships to study first in the UK and then in Europe, and I stayed. While I was in the Royal Academy of Music, I formed an ensemble called Lontano, and it did very well. So well that the BBC heard them before we even left the academy. The BBC decided to record us, so we started recording for the BBC early on, and Lontano still goes on. And we've done tours all over the world, and of course they play in the festival that I mentioned earlier. I formed a record label in '92 because I still saw that women composers were really not getting a look in.
Mm.
So in '92 I created the label called Lontano Records Limited, known as Lorelt, Lorelt, and we record a lot of women composers from all over the world, Latin American music, and living composers. And to this day we're doing that.
That's amazing. So,
Thank you.
you do a lot between composing and actually helping other people with their music, running the festival.
I do my best.
Yes.
The idea is to make a difference. And it's really funny because 30 years after we founded the record label, it's big now to promote women composers. And I look around and I say, I've been doing this for 30 years.
Hmm.
And we're getting recognition, which is nice. But the important part is that I feel like we lit the flame and people picked up the flame and ran with it. That's the important part, isn't it?
Yeah. When you went to university, sorry, I forgot where you went the first time.
My
The
first
first one.
university is Tulane University here in New Orleans. It's an excellent university. I actually did math and music, but at the time of graduation, they said I had to decide. They couldn't give me two different degrees.
Oh,
So I
wow.
decided to take the music degree.
Hmm.
And that's when I got all the scholarships to study in Europe and the continent.
That's amazing. So, when you sit down to compose, what does your process look like?
I'll tell you, it's different from most people. Instead of sitting down and working out the notes, I work out the rhythm. I was born, like I said, in Cuba, but I lived in a little town which was full of Afro-Cuban music day and night. And I remember going to sleep with drumming, Afro-Cuban drumming, all night and waking up at 6 in the morning when the drumming stopped. And so my whole world is about writing the rhythm because my music is very rhythmic, writing the rhythm, and then you add the rest.
I love that. I think I need to take that on in my own writing because I feel like the rhythm is the last thing I think about. I think about the melody more. So I'm going to try that.
Try that because rhythm gives life
Yeah.
to music. It gives impetus and life. And so once you've got that life already there, it's much easier to add the rhythm, the harmonies and the lines. Not easier, but it certainly opens the door.
Yeah. So you've lived in, I'm guessing, many different places, it
Yes,
sounds like.
Cuba, the States, and now I live in the UK. I've lived in the UK for quite a long time,
Hmm.
and really that's where my career took off, both as a composer and a conductor.
So does the UK feel the most like home for you?
No, New Orleans feels like home for me, but the UK is a wonderful place to be because there's a lot of musicians, there's a lot of music, there's a lot of openness to contemporary music, and it's in a way the door to Europe. So it's
Hmm.
perfect place, and I like it. I like it very much.
So after you decided to take your the music degree at Tulane, did you come to the UK to study?
Yes,
And then did you go anywhere else?
yes. I went to the Royal Academy of Music. I did 4 years. And then at the same time I was doing my fourth year at the academy, I started a master's degree in composition at the University of Surrey, which I continued. And then with one of the awards that I received, I got a chance to study all over Europe electronic computer music, really.
Hmm.
In those days, computer music was not as fancy as it is today, as easy. But in those days, I went to places in Italy, in Norway. I went to quite a few places to study how computer music was developing.
When you moved to America, um,
As a child, you mean?
yes, as a
Yes.
child, did music help you in your transition and moving? Did it kind of become something that you used or
It was always there. Music is always there. But what I brought with me when I grew up in America was the Afro-Cuban music with the Afro-Cuban rhythms. And it was everywhere. I mean, my first piece after that little piece for baby that I told you about was a misa breve Afro-Cubana, a short mass Afro-Cuban with lots of Afro-Cuban sounds. It was, not there weren't any instruments to accompany it, but there was always all this idea of two different tempi running at the same time, a really good ostinato that kept things alive. And but it was there. It was there from what I heard as a child.
hmm.
And the Afro-Cuban influence has continued to this day. Like I like to write operas, and my latest opera called Imoinda, a story of love and slavery, which traces the beginning of the Afro-Caribbean culture, is full of rhythms, rhythms and dancing and rhythms again.
Mm.
Even at the saddest time in the opera, there's still a lot of rhythm.
Yeah, I love that. What do you like about writing operas?
I like action. I like drama. I like things happening on stage. So many of the operas being written today are just about dialogue, and I find that's very hard to maintain an interest. So, yes, of course, there's dialogue in my operas, but there's a lot of movement. For example, in Imoinda, there's a big dance where anyway, the guy who wants to marry the girl, Imoinda, is there, and then there's a big fight as well before they're sent to the Americas. Later on, she has a baby on stage. I mean, it's all happening, and it's exciting,
Mm.
and it's all part of the music and part of the drama that drives the music. It's drama that drives the music. You can write dramatic music and beautiful music, but if you're writing opera, you need that drama to drive the music forward.
What made you pick music instead of math? And were you nervous about it?
It picked me.
Ah.
Music picked me. I couldn't keep away. Uh, you're hearing all these planes. I think they're military planes flying above our heads here in New Orleans. Well, you know what's happening.
Mm.
Anyway, so if you hear it, that's what it is.
Hmm.
I think music picked me. I couldn't keep away. One teacher I had at Tulane said whenever I was waiting to wait in a class, he said he could hear I was there because he could hear me drumming on the seats. And I love rhythm, so
So when you actually sit down to compose and you start with the rhythm, are you drumming to do that?
I work out the rhythms, yeah. Sometimes I work out the rhythms on the table and work out drumming it, yes. And I mean, it isn't just drums, it is like the counterpoint between drums,
Mm-hmm.
which is what you hear in Afro-Cuban music,
Mm-hmm.
you know, three and four voices, like J.S. Bach, but instead of being notes, what you hear is rhythm, which you hear in J.S. Bach. That's why I like him so much, because the rhythm in J.S. Bach keeps the music alive. Well, I find that the rhythm is very important. It keeps the music moving forward, it keeps it alive, it gives it impetus, it gives it life.
Mm. Do you have instruments that you tend to favor as well in your composition?
No, particularly. No, I like them all.
Hmm.
I like them all.
So how do you kind of work out? So for instance, when you're writing an opera, do you start with the story? Does it come from a musical idea? What kind of do you start with and how does it develop?
When you start an opera, you need to start with a story, and you need to start with a basic libretto, and then you move from there. I mean, and sometimes you choose the instruments related to the story. Like my first story is about an American evangelist. It's called Sister Amy, an American evangelist. And so when I thought of evangelism, I thought of a brass band. And so the instrumentation for the orchestra is strings and a brass quintet and organ. So you have the organ when you're talking about when she's in church, you have the brass when she's preaching, and you have the rhythm of the strings as well. And that's how I work out the instrumentation for the operas, according to what the story is.
Do you primarily or have you primarily done your own works or do you ever compose with anyone or collaborate in that way?
Well, you collaborate with a librettist.
Oh yeah, that makes
I
sense.
wouldn't know where to write a libretto. I wouldn't know how. But
Mm-hmm.
I either find a really good story with a basic libretto or I find a librettist who wants to write a piece with me.
Mm.
Like this new one that I'm writing, it's about have you heard of the Spanish poet Lorca?
Mm-mm.
Garcia Lorca. He's pretty well known internationally. And it's going to be an opera both in English and in Spanish.
Mm.
And I'm working with a librettist called Alicia Cata Martinez, who's my cousin, but I like her work. And it's about a period in the life of Lorca, and it's called Luna Luna, Moon Moon, and it's the kind of stuff, it's the kind of thing he used to do in his poems. He wrote many poems with which are very much in the style of Southern Spanish, and that kind of style of writing, which is very ethnic, which is the repeated ideas like Luna, Luna, Moon, Moon, and it's very passionate. And so I thought this was perfect, perfect story. And Garcia Lorca died a very young death. He was killed during the Spanish Civil War in the late 30s, 1930s. And so it's a nice story.
I love South Af- South American music and
Yeah,
all it is just like you just feel it in your body and it makes you want to get up and dance and everything and I
yeah.
absolutely love it. I went to Berklee College of Music to
Oh, yeah.
study and
Berkeley.
yeah, and there were so many groups. So I would say like most people who are from similar areas in the world kind of stick together and I was always like I just want to be part of that group so bad because the music is just so like you said it just gives so much life and it has so much drama and so much life in it. It's just so beautiful.
I'm glad you like it. You might even like my music. You never know.
I did listen to some of it and I
Okay.
actually suggest that anyone listening definitely go check out uh, Odaline's music.
All they need to go is odalineDelamartinez.com and
Perfect.
they can find links to my music.
I will have it also linked in the episode notes, so anyone who wants to find it,
Good.
it will be very easy.
And if you need any recordings that you don't have, I can probably provide them.
Perfect. So, when you were first starting out in your composition career, did you have any fears or doubts, or did you ever question your decision or anything like that?
I didn't know any better. If I knew how hard it is to be a musician, I would have thought three times. But I didn't know any better. And I love music and music loved me. So I just moved in.
Hmm. So, what got you through the hard times, if that makes sense?
A lot of it scholarships.
Mm.
When I graduated from Tulane, I got about three different scholarships, which lasted about 10 years. And they got me going through those early years of trying to make a career.
And what did you do? How did you create your career? Where did you go? How did you start?
It wasn't like I was trying to create a career, it was like I was trying to express myself. I
Mm.
expressed myself through my music and through helping other people. And somehow it just took off. I have no clue how those things happen, but
Yeah.
you do what you believe in, and somehow life helps you move on.
Mm. That's beautiful.
And those first 10 years after you finish studying are really important. And I was lucky to have those 10 years of study and post study, which allowed me to make connections. And also, you meet people where you study. At the Royal Academy of Music, I met many musicians. And then, as you all graduate, you encourage each other. They want to hear your music, they want you to write something for them, they want to play it. And so it carries on like that.
Mm. So your connections that you make early on still influence who you
Yes,
work with today.
it still does today.
Mm. And you mentioned that your cousin, do you have a pretty musical family, would you say?
No, she's a writer. She's
Mm.
not a musician, she's a writer. But she has a very good ear for rhyming, for poetry, for rhythm. So in that sense she's ideal to write a libretto.
Mm.
No, my family is not musical. My aunt used to sing, but I don't think she ever studied music. So I don't know where it came from. I think it was just being surrounded by Afro-Cuban rhythms every night.
Yeah. It just inspired you to go.
After a while, it just moves into your life.
Yeah. So did you actually teach yourself how to play piano and everything?
No, no, my parents were clever enough and wise enough to send my sister and I. I started playing the piano when I was three.
Mm.
Every little town in Cuba used to have a conservatory, and our little town had a conservatory, and they taught me to play the piano and the drums.
Wow.
And then when I moved to the States, I carried on studying.
So I kind of want to talk more about your move as a child and how if has impacted your life and your career at all. How old were you when you actually moved?
11. I was
11.
11, but we didn't think that it was going to be forever. We thought, oh, this is a nice trip. We'll be back home when it's time. And next thing you realize, you don't go home. I mean, I did go to Cuba in 89, 90. They invited me to open the Havana Festival with Lontano, my chamber orchestra ensemble. And we did a Central American tour. Anyway, so we were invited to open, I was invited to open the Havana Festival. And the British Council said, all right, but see if you can do a tour of Central America. So we did. And on that tour, we ended up in Cuba. And that's the last time I was there because I almost didn't get out.
Really? What happened?
They wanted me to use my Cuban passport that had expired. And so I went to the Cuban consulate in London and I applied for a new passport. And when I got to the last stop before Cuba was Mexico. When I got to Mexico City, they sent me a telegram, or maybe before I got there, saying your passport is waiting at the airport in Havana with your visas. I almost didn't get on the plane because the Mexican airline that flew to Cuba said, we can't let you in with a passport that doesn't have any visas. Anyway, they finally let me in. And when I landed, my passport wasn't there.
Oh my gosh.
And they took it all away. I finally got a passport, Cuban passport, with an entry visa, but no exit visa. And when I got back to the airport after we finished our performance opening the Havana Festival, they wouldn't let me out. They would not let me out.
Oh
And it
my
was
gosh.
wonderful because Lontano got behind me at the airport and said, if they got all behind me, if they don't let you out, we're not moving either. So they had to let me go. And I tell you, I was so scared when I got on that flight, scared that they would get me off, but they didn't. And as soon as we left Cuban airspace, I started crying and crying and crying and crying and crying. And I landed in the UK still crying.
Oh my
And I didn't
gosh.
know what to do. So I phoned my uncle in Tucson, who was a psychiatrist, and he said, "You'll be fine." Because the next week I was working with an orchestra in the UK, and I thought, "Oh my God!" And I'll say something like, "We're going from bar 30," and I start crying. So
Yeah.
he said, "No, no, no, you'll be all right," and he was right. I stopped crying, but because of the experience, I haven't gone back to Cuba. You can
Yeah.
imagine.
Wow. So has that been really hard? Like, do you want to go back, but you just,
No. And now the situation in Cuba is really bad. I'm sure you've heard about it.
hmm
They have no electricity, no petrol, they have nothing. And so I certainly wouldn't want to go now.
yeah. Geez, that is so intense. I can't imagine having a situation like that with my home country.
Well, to think that you might never get out. That's
Yeah.
what that's when I was in the airport in Havana. I was thinking, oh my God, might never get out.
Yeah.
I'd be stuck here forever. And then I got out, thank God.
Yeah. Wow. So I think it's pretty beautiful that you can keep your culture alive through music. That must be nice, at least to have that still with you.
Very important to me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to forget it because there's a certain roughness that comes with being Cuban. You don't have the softness and the politesse of being English. So it's very important for me to keep that I
Mm,
don't forget it. Of course, politesse and softness is important, but not all the time. And so I need to keep that going so that I don't forget where I'm from
mm.
and I don't forget where I'm going.
Have you found a community in the UK that, like other people from Cuba or other people who share the same music styles, things like that?
I haven't found many Cubans, to be honest. I found very few Cubans, but I found quite a few Latin Americans. And there's quite a few Latin Americans in the UK. And so by performing a lot of the music, Cuban and Latin American music, I keep that contact
Mm.
alive.
And it sounds like you've also kind of built your own community through your record label and the festival too.
Correct.
How
Correct.
did you start building that?
The
What kind of,
festival.
yeah.
The record label, may I say, the record label is because I saw that there was all this neglect. Women composers, Latin American music, living composers. I thought it's too neglected. So I started. And the festival was because I also saw lots of American composers that were gaining uh, fame or at least being acknowledged in the United States, and they were completely unknown. They only knew people in England and Europe only knew the one or two famous names, Steve Reich, Terry Riley, you know, that's all they knew. And so I thought it was important to hear all that because the different styles in America are massive,
Mm,
so many different styles. And then with my operas, I decided now, and with my music, I decided to start using Spanish and English so that my next opera will be in Spanish and English. And I think that's really important because it looks like now in the States, about 20% of the population is Latino or Latina. So it's really important that the language be respected and set to music. And I've set lots of Spanish poems
mm.
to music. I've done
Yeah,
that.
I noticed that on your
Spanish
website.
and Cuban. Spanish and Cuban. My last set of songs was four Afro-Cuban poems.
Mm,
And I think it's really important because even though Afro-Cuban is not a language, it's a culture that has a different point of view towards Spanish. And I thought it was important.
yeah. So when you say that your opera's in Spanish and English, is it that the lyrics, like different pieces, are in different languages, or
Yes.
is it that it's all in both?
It's no, no. It's only my next opera. My other
Okay.
two operas are in my other ones that I finished, Imoinda, and before that, Sister Amy, an American Legend. They were in English, but I've decided that the next one, because it deals with a Spanish subject, Lorca, Spanish poems, a lot of the singing of. I've got some flamenco singers in the
Mm,
opera happening two and three times, and so that singing is in Spanish but other singing is in English. And I think it's really important to incorporate both into the
mm.
opera because it is about a poet who wrote in Spanish.
Yeah, that's amazing. How do you go about getting your operas performed?
Oh, that's $1 million question. You need to talk people into it. by letting them realize how good your music is, by working on it, really.
Mm.
You met Igor.
Mm-hmm.
He's helping me try and get my latest opera done in America. It takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time and a lot of commitment to sort of get people to listen, to get people to realize the value of it. It takes a lot of time.
Mm.
But you believe in it. I believe in my stuff, so I just carry on.
That's great advice, I think. So, to go back to let's start with your record label. At what point in your career did you decide to start that?
It was in 92. I'd been in England 20 years, and I've just been fed up. Actually, I realized that I was prejudiced against women composers. I realized that I wasn't composing women composers, sorry, performing them. And having realized this, I said, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm just like everybody else. So then I started performing women composers. And that's when I decided on the label. So it isn't enough to perform them, you got to record them so that people hear it. And that's when I started in
Mm.
92. So it's been going 30 odd years.
Wow. How did you start that? What did that entail?
It began really when CDs were available, because before that, when LPs were available, you couldn't just have 100 CDs or 1,000 as it started. You had to have 30,000, and that's a lot of money. One CDs once that CDs came up, then you could actually print 1,000 CDs. Now you can print 10.
Mm.
In those days, you printed 1,000, and that's a lot cheaper than printing 30,000 LPs.
Mm.
And then download began soon after. So download was another way to sell CDs. So it sort of created itself by the fact that technology had developed so greatly that it allowed those little people like myself to do hopefully big things.
Mm. And did your record label did you have like a recording studio and everything, or how did
You
it
don't have
work?
to. You don't have to. You could hire a church. You could hire, for example, we often record at the University of Surrey. They have a studio called Pat's because they train musicians, they train people to become recording engineers. They've won all kinds of awards, film and music awards. Um, and so sometimes we record at the Pat studio, and it's very good quality.
Mm.
And so, because I'm a professor there, I get a better deal than other people, you know. And also, but it's that the world has changed. You don't have to record in a big recording studio. You don't have to own one and bring your artist in. You can do everything as you go, and you can make the quality because of the development of technology. As good as you make it, that's good.
I love this. I haven't gone into detail about these things before with other people, so it's very valuable to know. And then at what point did you start the festival?
I started the festival in 2006.
Okay.
Again, this idea that some really good American musicians were being neglected. So I started it. And I do it every 2 years. I didn't think I could keep it up every year because it takes a lot of research.
Yeah.
And you sort of need to recover 1 year before you start the next. And so it happens every 2 years, and it's been very successful. We've had a lot of support. We've brought a lot of American composers over, and we've done premieres. You know, when we started, you've heard of George Crumb, haven't you?
Hmm.
When we started as students in the academy, we were playing George Crumb. Nobody in the UK or Europe had heard of it. And of course,
Wow.
the BBC heard us. And when they heard us playing George Crumb, we started recording for them. So we're always looking for young and old and geographically different and ethnically different. And we want to create a festival where you can see all sides of the American culture, all angles, you know?
Hmm. Where is your festival usually held?
It's held in London, and it's very difficult in any of the major concert halls to have a week.
Mm.
Like if I go to the festival hall, they're not, or the Purcell room, they're not going to give me a whole week. They'll give me a date. So I found a very good place. It's called the Warehouse.
Mm.
It's not far from Waterloo Station, and it's great. I can do operas there. I can do concerts there. I can do choral music, orchestral music, and I can hire it for the week if I hire it, you know, in advance, much in advance. So it's turned out to be very good.
Wow. How do you go about doing the marketing for things like this? Do you hire people on or do you do it yourself?
We do. I'm not qualified.
Yeah,
And I have a person, a PR person, who does a lot of that.
nice.
And they do a lot of this. I mean, a lot of the PR today is social, isn't it?
Yes.
Social networking. And so they have a person who does a lot of that. And it's good.
Yeah.
I mean, the world is different. The world has changed. The 21st century has changed the face of promoting music and performing it.
Definitely.
And in particular, the end of the 20th century marked all the difference in technology as far as number one, having CDs, which allow you to print small numbers, and the fact that you've got downloads, that people can download a piece of music on the internet.
Mm,
You couldn't get that before. You had to buy an LP. Of course, people still collect LPs. I collect LPs,
yeah,
but that's a different story.
nice. Is there anything else that you want to kind of talk more about or dive into?
I think if I want to talk about anything, it's about the influence of Afro-Cuban music in music today.
Mm,
I read somewhere many years ago that for rock musicians, the influence of Afro-Cuban rhythms was massive, and you're beginning to see it today. You know, for example, in Cuba, in Latin America, we have something called el toque. So you got this rhythm. You hear it everywhere. The
mm,
Cuban version is so you hear that in almost all music. You hear in music where there's a drum in the background or where there's just percussion in the back. You hear it in everything just about. And that goes back to the influence of Afro-Cuban music. And I think it needs to be acknowledged. And of course, spending time in New Orleans, where jazz was born. Today, if you hear anybody, and I write classical music, but if you hear anybody in a band, they have two types of drummer. They have your general drummer and they have your Latin drummer. Over and over again. And I think Latin music has really influenced the world. It just needs to be acknowledged.
mm. What do you think made made the music industry kind of adopt that sound?
It's attractive, it's compelling, it's full of life. So, of course, they'd adopt it. They'd be
Yeah,
silly if they didn't.
it would be. It is so I know what you mean like in pop music, like everything has that beat in it
Yeah.
to keep things moving.
And it's a basic rhythm. From there you can build up. You can build up a whole Afro-Cuban orchestra of drums. And they add and subtract. And they improvise around the basic rhythm. Sure.
Where would be the best place for people to study Afro-Cuban music and learn more about it?
Cuba, two places. A lot of musicians, a lot of Cuban musicians went to New York. You can go to New York and study Afro-Cuban music. Or you can go to Cuba. But Cuba is having a hard time right now. So, oh yeah, if you go to New York, you can find your Afro-Cuban musicians. Miami as well, but New York more than anywhere else. If you want to study Afro-Cuban music, there's some marvelous drummers and some marvelous Cuban musicians in New York. That's the place to go.
Good to know. Along with the beat that you clapped out and kind of the rhythm aspect of it, are there any other parts of Afro-Cuban music that you hear in music today?
I think that the chordal system, the system of chords, for example, there's something like the Afro-Cuban scale. If you have G, la 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 la, in the Afro-Cuban scale, the seventh note is lower, so it's la 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 la. It's F natural. I'm sorry, I'm not a very good singer.
No, that's okay.
And if you have that Afro-Cuban scale, you can do many things.
Mm,
Does that help?
yeah, it does. So, do you find when you're composing music, so you use the Afro-Cuban part of it, what other things do you adopt into your music?
I don't just use the Afro-Cuban scale. When I'm composing don't forget I have a whole background of uh, classical music training.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll write a rhythm in fugue, or in my last opera, Imoinda, There's one time when I have three and four rhythms going at the same time, not clashing but augmenting each other. And that, it's a classical opera, but if you actually break down all the four voices happening, two of them are drums and the other two are solo voices, you realize that I've got a fugue rhythmically going. You see what I mean? Nobody would know that because they're listening to the singers in the opera, but I use that. So what I'm combining really is my classical training of many, many, many years with my Cuban background.
Mm. Are there any musicians, and also your work is definitely something people can listen to get that sound. Is
Good.
there anyone else that you would suggest listening to or things like that to get more inspired by that sound?
Well, a lot of rhythm, a lot of classical music today, Philip Glass, a lot of the musicians today are using rhythms from the Afro-Cuban world. They may not know they're doing it, but they are. I mean, it's become second nature. I just want it to be recognized, that's all.
Well, we will recognize it now.
Thank you.
That's for sure. I guess jumping back again to growing up in New Orleans and being in that jazz culture, just a hub for a bunch of different rich cultural music. Did that impact your style as well, do you think?
I don't write jazz. I use rhythms that may be used in jazz. But if you're walking around in the French Quarter in New Orleans, in every corner, there's somebody making music. Sometimes it's what is it called? Zurike. I can't pronounce it right. It's the music that came over with the Cajuns when they came from Canada down to Louisiana. Zurike. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name. But you see, one corner you see a little boy with upside down bottles or upside down pots, and he's playing on them, and he's creating some wonderful rhythms. In another corner, you hear musicians improvising jazz. You go to the next corner, you hear a brass band that just came from northern Louisiana, and you go another. It's that idea of jazz or music becoming a way of life that is so important about New Orleans. It isn't just about hearing jazz in the various places, it's about music almost being food. They talk about music being the food of love. Well, Afro-Cuban music, jazz, and contemporary music are the food of life.
That's really profound. I
Have
like
you
that.
been to New Orleans?
I haven't. I need to go
You
so
better
badly.
hurry
I know.
and go to the French Quarter and just walk from corner to corner, and you'll find different kinds of music. Just go. You have to give them little bits of money because they're playing for money.
That's fine.
That's okay. Just give them $1 or five or whatever. Do it. You must go. It's
Yes.
extraordinary.
Yes, I need to.
It's
I will
it's
definitely
it's
plan to go
music.
there.
Absolutely, music as a way of life. The music is their life,
Yeah.
and that's why New Orleans is my soulish home.
Mm.
I may live in UK and I love it, but I keep coming back to New Orleans because it feeds my soul.
Hmm. So I'm an American living in the UK,
Right?
and
So am I.
yes, I'm wondering if that if you find any aspects of the culture difficult
Yes.
or
Subtlety.
yeah.
British subtlety. They'll say something and it goes above my head. And all of a sudden I realize what they just said. And I go, oh my God, sarcasm has a level of subtlety that I have never encountered before. And I
Hmm.
often miss it. You know?
Yeah.
You,
Yeah, definitely. I I think I get sarcasm more. I think it's mostly things I say that come off in the wrong way to British people
yes.
because I'm more direct.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
like the subtleties you're talking about where maybe something is really wrong. They won't say like, "Oh my gosh, this is really bad." It will be like, "Hmm, this is quite the predicament that we're in," you
Or
know?
yes, or this is a slight problem.
Yes. And you're like, "Oh, okay, so it's not a big deal."
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, so definitely I think that part of it is hard. But I do love the how old it is here compared to, for instance, America. And I think there's a lot of new music in America and that kind of culture, but I do appreciate how much old art there is in the UK as well
Yeah.
and seeing that side of the world. So,
Yeah, yeah. You need the old to do the new. Often the new is a reaction to the old.
mm,
Like you think about even people like Ravel and Debussy at the beginning of the 20th century, we don't see them as new, but in their days, they were reacting to the old. They were seeing as, avant-garde. And so they were reacting. And so today we react to what we call old music, and that carries on forward.
So, is there any piece that you're working on or any works that you've had? I know you've had a bunch of things performed recently. Anything you'd want to talk about more?
I think my four Afro-Cuban poems, that piece took me to my childhood because I lived in a little town where there was a lot of black people. And it's because originally it was a sugar processing town and eventually it stopped being that. But as a result, originally they brought a lot of enslaved people to work on the sugar processing. And so it's a big black culture. And the fact that I remember that, that to me is really important.
Were the poems already written?
Yes. Yes, I sent the music to Nicolas Guillen. He was the first poet to write what they call Afro-Cuban poetry. Nicolas Guillen. The poems are about, but he didn't just write like Federico Garcia Lorca. He wrote he wrote poems that talked about the Afro-Cuban culture. Like the poems that are set are 1930s poems. So in some ways it's got a touch of male chauvinism. In the last poem he talks about, oh, I love her, my little lady, she's so wonderful, she cooks and she irons and she does everything, and when she goes dancing, it's a fact that talks about cooking and iron, that they did it in the 30s, but you don't do that anymore. But it's the way he writes about the life of Afro-Cuban people, which is so beautiful, it's so colorful, and I could not do it because it reminded me so much of my young years in Cuba.
I will link those pieces down below. Yes, I think I listened to them actually before this interview, so I watched that video, and I
Ah,
loved.
that version is for strings. That version is for string quartet.
Oh, so it's different version.
The video is for string quartet, and they did that at SUNY in New York. Yes,
It's
thank
amazing.
you.
I loved it. Yeah. So you created it for full orchestra.
I did it for string orchestra. I did a version for string orchestra, and that's the one that the RPO, the Royal Philharmonic, recorded, and later on the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra recorded. We're editing the Manitoba one. The Philharmonic one, the Royal Philharmonic, should be available on CD, if not now, very soon.
Amazing. But yeah, it's beautiful. So everyone make sure to go check that out and listen to those poems.
Four Afro-Cuban poems, yes.
Yes. Amazing. Well, I don't have any more questions for you. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about though?
No, other than I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad you
I really
did.
enjoyed this conversation.
I've learned so much from you and
Thank
who
you.
knows the culture, who knows the music. So I really have loved having that perspective
Thank you.
on the podcast. It's very nice.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Make sure to sign up for our newsletter, The Composer Studio, for a more behind the scenes look at composing, including a monthly newsletter with opportunities, news in the music industry, and more. See you in the next one.